Let's talk about your new stimulus update for Monday, May 25th. And as always, we will go through our three categories today on this video, which is what is the likely payout that you're going to see with this new stimulus? Who is going to be included in it and who is not? And what does the current timeline look like for this being passed and voted on and eventually being put into your account? And the good thing about doing it this way is if there's any changes or updates, it's easy for us to see them and to track the different trends that are occurring. And there has been a couple of changes in the last 2 days that I want to highlight for you in these different categories. If this looks like the style of an update that you would like, consider subscribing to the channel because this is how we will keep doing it as the news changes. But before we get into any of this, I would like to thank military personnel and their family on this Memorial Day, where we honor those who have given up their lives in service to the United States of America. Thank you very much. And I encourage you, if you see anyone who's a military personnel, thank them as well. And if you are watching today personally, thank you for your service. On to the stimulus payout information. The first category I want to go through with you is what is the likely payout amount that you're going to see. And what I do is I tell you that payout amount and the percentage chance that they're actually going to pass it. So the first one is the $1,200 one-time payout. This is by far and away the leader right now. And I have that at a 90% chance that you're going to see a one-time $1,200 payout. And if you saw my last video, you know that the percentage chance just went down a little bit. I had it at a 95% chance on Saturday. So why is there a little bit of a downward trend? I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. The other stimulus payout that's getting some traction is this $5,000 Social Security thing. If you're not familiar with this, basically Americans would get a $5,000 payout, but they would be borrowing it against their Social Security and they would have to pay it back at some point later. Some people like this, actually enough people like it that I put it at a 10% chance, but there's a lot of problems with it. There's logistical issues, how to implement something like this, and whether or not it's even a good idea. So it's not likely, but I have it at a 10% chance. The other one is the recurring payments. So the idea that you might see a month-to-month $1,000 or $2,000 payout for a certain amount of time, I only have that at a 4% chance of happening. The reason it's so low is the Democrats didn't even put recurring payments into their HEROES Act. Never mind fiscally conservative Republicans adding something like that in. So low percentage there. And the last category I have is called different. So this is the idea that they might come up with some sort of a different payout for you, or they might put 2 or 3 together or attach something to it. I think there's a 50% chance that they come out with something a little bit different or unique. But by far and away, the leader right now is the one-time $1,200 payout. But why is there a little bit of a downward trend on that one? We know that Mitch McConnell, who is the Republican Senate Majority Leader, Jerome Powell, who is the chair of the Federal Reserve, and even Donald Trump, the President of the United States, have all come out in the last couple of weeks in support of a new stimulus payout. However, there have been some Republican leadership who have said some things that are sort of putting a little bit of shadiness in whether or not they're going to get enough support for this to actually happen. Here we have from Larry Kudlow, when we come back to these negotiations, as we undoubtedly will, it is very important that we move from rescue to reopening. Larry Kudlow is the White House's top economic advisor, and so he's looking at not rescuing people anymore, but reopening the economy. That little bit of a shift in thinking could be enough to shift away from a new stimulus payout. We also see from Steven Mnuchin, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, we are going to step back for a few weeks and think very carefully if we need to spend more money and how we are going to do that. Again, this idea of being more thoughtful about spending money. Should we spend money? Should we go into more debt? We need to be careful about how we do it. It's just a little bit of a trend in a different direction than more stimulus payments. But even with negative sort of trending quotes like that lend away from getting another payout, I do believe it's still likely to happen because of quotes like this. I think there will be a second payment to help Americans move on. We will give them money towards the end of the outbreak. Right now, we are focusing on reopening the country. And that was from President Donald Trump. And obviously, he's going to be leading the way as far as what to do with this. Generally, people will fall into line if the Republicans, if Trump says this. He is saying there's probably going to be another second payout. it's going to be towards the end of the outbreak, which is one of the reasons why I give you the timeline that I do. In a second, I'll show you. But I still think there's enough support for the $1,200 payout. But as time goes on, it's trending a little downward. So who's included? None of this has really changed up much. So I'm just going to put all the information up there. You can read through it yourself. The only change that I put here is that for children, currently it's $1,200 per child. Limit of 3 children. So they upped that from the $500 payment from the CARES Act. But I think that as this thing gets debated back and forth, they're going to go ahead and change that back to the $500 payout. I think there's going to be enough people who are going to think people don't need $1,200 payouts for their children. And so they're going to go more conservative on that number. So that's the only thing I added there. And finally, we need to look at the payout timeline. So when is this actually going to all go down? Well, first, the Senate has to take up the bill. They still have not done that. On this channel, we let you know that they weren't going to do that until after Memorial Day. We're now at Memorial Day, and they haven't done it yet. So I have May 26th to May 29th. I do believe it's probably going to be at the end of the week that they're going to take it up. I don't think they're going to do it tomorrow or Wednesday. So likely Thursday or Friday. Then as they debate this thing back and forth, the Senate is going to change the bill, probably between May 28th and June 3rd. Then the Senate's going to have to vote on whatever changes they made between June 4th and 5th. Then the House is going to have to take up the new Senate bill, all the changes that they made. And the House is going to have to do that within 3 days. That's their requirement governmentally. They got to take it up after 3 days. So they're going to do that between June 5th and June 9th. Then the House and the Senate are probably going to debate back and forth on this because there's going to be enough changes that there's going to be some disagreement. They're going to have to compromise between June 9th and June 12th. Then there's going to be a final bill. It's going to be signed by President Trump, and eventually a new payout's going to go to the American people. Right now, I'm sticking with this timeline. Again, there's a little bit of a trend in more pausing and waiting. They want to see what is the United States economy going to look like with Americans going back to work. However, I think there's enough people out of work right now. I think there's enough jobs that have been lost, and I think that there's enough economic instability and enough support in major Republican leadership that we will see a one-time $1,200 payout again. And probably between July 1st and July 30th is when that payment is going to hit your bank account. If you like this style where I go through these 3 different categories, consider subscribing to the channel. I will keep doing this and sharing with you the different trends and changes that we are starting to see happen based off of the information from the leadership at the government level. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I will catch you next time.